Hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul TX141 Walsh, welcoming you to an all new Ace in the Day gameplay for the arcade mode of War Thunder. In today's episode we shall be reviewing North American Aviation's own P-51D-30 Mustang, an American fighter aircraft coming to Tier 4 and a battle rating of 4.3. Having already provided a historical overview as to the general history behind the Mustang, extending from its inception through to the start of the D variant, as seen in our P-51D-5 review, link available in the top right corner of your screen now, today's historical overview will focus on the sub-variants of the D variant of the Mustang. We begin thus. With the arrival of the P-51D variant of the Mustang in 1944, the D variant's production life was split up into production blocks. All the blocks incorporated the standardised bubble canopy, 6 12.7mm M2 Browning machine guns for their armament, with 380 rounds per gun for the inboard pairings, and 270 rounds per gun for the outermost pair in the wings, and they were all powered by the Merlin-Packard V1650-7 liquid-cooled V12 engine, which possessed a two-stage intercooled supercharger providing an output of 1,490 horsepower, or 1,720 horsepower with war emergency power. The P-51Ds were produced at two factories owned by North American Aviation, leading to separate designations for the aircraft based on their factory of origin. Those from the Inglewood, California factory were known as P-51D NAs, with 6,502 of these being produced in production blocks 1 to 30. Meanwhile, the other factory, located at Dallas, Texas, led to the P-51s being known as DNTs, with 1,454 of these being produced in production blocks 5 to 30. The first main production block was known as the P-51D-5 NA, containing 800 aircraft. From flying experience of the P-51D-5 in general, it was quickly noted that the cut-down rear fuselage, a result of the bubble canopy, led to a loss of surface area. In turn, this caused the plane to become unstable, as its centre of gravity was located towards the tail section. This was resolved by adding a dorsal fin to the plane's vertical stabiliser, as of the P-51D-10 NA production block variants. The dorsal fin was retrofitted to the D5s in the field. The K-14 analogue computer gun sight was introduced to the P-51D in October of 1944 with the -20 NA production block. This gun sight assisted pilots with high deflection shots in particular. As of the -25 production blocks, attachment points were added to the plane for mounting ground attack ordnance, i.e. bombs and rockets. The plane could carry up to 10 T-64 HVAR rockets or 1,000 pounds of external bomb ordnance. The final production blocks, known as the D-30, appeared from both factories in approximately February of 1945. This is the plane on screen today. These featured a metal elevator control surface, with 800 being produced from Inglewood and 400 from Dallas. The twin radio antennae you can see on your screen represent the ARC-3 and ARA-8 very high frequency VHF command radio set, with the ARA-8 adapter giving the radio set a homing capability. The earlier P-51D blocks were fitted with the SCR 552-A command radio set, which operated at lower frequencies to the ARC-3 and lacked the homing capability. The switch to the improved radio set was so that the Luftwaffe could not listen in on United States Army Air Force radio traffic. The ARC-3 radio arrived in early 1945 and was most likely only fitted to the D-30 production blocks in the D variants. The P-51D was followed by the P-51H variant post-World War II. And with our historical overview concluded, let us take a look at how the P-51D-30 handles in War Thunder's arcade mode. Today's gameplay takes place on the ground strike map Eastern Europe. For this we'll be using the following setup. Stealth belts are 12.7mm machine guns, reasoning being that these are the most powerful belts on offer in my experience, consisting of 2 armour-piercing incendiary rounds backed up by 2 incendiary rounds. For our gun convergence, we are using a 500m gun convergence, as in the ideal scenario we will open fire on our foes at 800m to a kilometre and try to range them in by the time we hit a distance of 400 to 600m from them. And at these ranges, 500m is smack bang in the middle, providing us with the ideal convergence for a kill shot. And for our fuel load, we are taking the 30-minute fuel load because, as you may have already guessed ladies and gentlemen, we want to make it to the end of the game unscathed on fuel capacity. We begin our analysis of the D-30 then by talking about its climb rate. At its battle rating and tier, this aircraft's climb rate is nothing to laugh at. It is comparable to the likes of the Yak-9U and the LA-7. It falls short, however, of the ideal climbers at its battle rating, such as the Ki-84 Ko, the P-63A10 King Cobra, and the Ki-43-3 Otsu. And when this plane is taken into higher battle rating matches, i.e. battle ratings 5.0 or 5.3 as depicted on your screen today, planes such as the Focke 190D9 and the Spitfire F Mark 14E, to name a pair, will be able to outclimb this plane significantly. So instead, rather than going head to head with a Focke 190D9 that will have the energy advantage on us, especially in terms of altitude, we're just going to turn away 180 degrees and climb out towards the back of friendly territory, and use two of the key strengths of the D-30 from the outset. The first being its straight line performance, whereby this plane will accelerate from its stall speed of 150 km an hour up to 500 km an hour rather quickly just on its engine power, and you can extend this threshold all the way up to 600 km an hour by adding in more emergency power. This makes the D-30 a very difficult plane to catch for planes at its battle rating and tier, as in a straight line when your foe is getting close you just need to dab a little bit of more emergency power and you can build your speed up to a point where your foe is really going to fall behind. And when going up against turn fighters such as the Spitfire F Mark 9 and the Ki-43-3 Otsu, this is an ideal getaway, and if they are still getting too close you just need to go into a high speed dive, simply because this plane picks up its speed rather well in a dive, not to the point of a P-47D, but quite close. The second other key point with this aircraft is the fact that this plane performs very consistently in its altitude range of 4,000 metres to 8,500 metres altitude. The engine and the overall handling characteristics will not fall apart until you hit an altitude of approximately 9,000 metres, at which point this plane will begin to suffer. On the opposite end of the spectrum, below 2,000 metres altitude, this plane will have difficulty in building up its overall performance on its engine in particular, and this will compromise your overall handling. But in the ideal altitude range we've already referenced, the P-51D-30 handles like the American dream, whereby this plane will build up its speed nicely and will be ready to attack any foe. And on top of this, one must consider that the majority of the foes you will face at your battle rating and tier are made for lower altitudes, i.e. 4,500 to 5,000 metres or less. And as they go to these higher altitudes, as we'll see later on in this game, they will lose their performance dramatically, providing you with the ability to attack your foes at will. And if you do end up turn fighting some foes at these altitudes, such as the Sea Hurricane Mark 1C, you'll find that you may win the turn fight, as I've personally done on a couple of occasions, not because you have the tighter turn circle, but because your foes are just going to fall out the sky as they try to make subsequent turns, whilst your plane keeps on performing. Here we go to intercept a Heinkel 111H16. We attack on the beam to avoid the 20mm cannon in their nose cone, and we rip them apart quite easily. This plane can act as a bomber interceptor even against the heavier bombers if you attack from the weak spots, or the less well defended spots we should really say. As we pick up our first kill, let us talk about the durability of the D-30. It is decent but not the best. This plane can absorb a good amount of light and heavy caliber machine gun ammunition, but when hit by cannon ammunition this plane will fall apart quite rapidly. It should be noted however you can take one or two direct hits from 20mm cannon shells, especially to the central fuselage. Just be careful of being hit behind where the cockpit is, because that is where your main fuel tank is, and a direct hit will normally cause the fuel tank to burst into flames, and if it does not burst into flames initially, instead it will have a number of holes in it which will not patch up even with the self-sealing fuel tanks, and this means that your fuel will gradually drip away and require you to land as a result for more fuel. Up at 6,500 metres altitude and now going into a gradual dive, we can protect our friendly A-26 from any insurgents that come up from above. But we decide to dive down instead and essentially harass our opponents as they climb, rather than allow them the grace period of being able to try and intercept our level bomber ally. We're going to start off with a Yak-3P here, and we're going to demonstrate the difference of having wing-mounted ammunition, or armament we should really say, versus having nose-mounted armament. The Yak-3P in particular has nose-mounted 20mm cannon, 3 of them. We dive down from directly above, the Yak-3P knows we are coming and decides to go direct vertical to go head to head with us. We have to bow out instantly, as otherwise we'd be ripped to pieces. And it should be noted that 1 or 2 hits to your engine as well from high explosive ammunition of a 20mm cannon can be enough to disable it. Yak-3Ps are good at doing that in the circumstances we've just described. So instead we decide to go back up into the vertical and use our energy advantage here to cause the Yak-3P to have to level out in a stall. We cut our hammerhead a little bit too late here. As we swing around, notice the difference in manoeuvrability. The Yak-3P can very quickly go into a split S here, and whilst we are scoring some hits we don't have the manoeuvrability, especially the negative G on the elevator, to follow them. So instead we break up once again, and we invite the Yak-3P to pursue us once again, up to altitudes now, hitting towards the tip of their ideal altitude range. Their engine loses its performance when heading up towards 5,000 metres, ours keeps its performance by comparison. So now the Yak 3P is right on the verge of getting a clean shot on us, but they stall out. We called it right and we hammerhead over the top. Using our heavy rudder, the heaviest of our three control surfaces and therefore the weakest, to snap round over the top of them and come down for our second hammerhead and pick them off for our second kill. Now in terms of controllability, we should note that the rudder is the heaviest control surface. We have said that, and it is the only control surface that locks up on this aircraft, i.e. when you hit a speed of 600 km/h in a dive, the rudder will lock up to roughly 75% of its standard performance by the time you hit 700 km/h. As we track the Fokker 190D9, the other two control surfaces, are your elevator and your ailerons, do not experience any lockup activity whatsoever in a high speed dive. That is unique to the P-51D-30. It almost applied fully to the D5, although there is some lockup at higher speeds. This means that even when you hit your maximum dive speed in this aircraft of 930 km/h, you will still have full control of those two control surfaces and 75% control of your rudder. Or in short, you practically have full control of this plane, whether going at lower speeds, i.e. 300 km/h, or speeds exceeding 900 km/h. Although it should be noted that when you feel your stalling characteristics start at 225 km/h, this plane will fly like a brick. Avoid going below 300 km/h like the plague. Here we've been doing essentially a number of little tactics to try and bait out a charge from the Fokker 190D9 in the vertical, much like with the Yak 3P. We were able to call it right and catch the D9 via using a reverse hammerhead, or essentially a reverse turn by corkscrewing in with our rudder, we should really say, and that caused the D9 to pick up a critical hit from our machine guns. We notice the Messerschmitt 19 F4 below us, but they are so engrossed in attacking our friendly P8, who the D9 is trying to go for now to try and get a desperation kill. We pick off the D9, and now we break back over, getting ready to cut down once again on our heavy rudder here to attack the Messerschmitt 109, who is still oblivious to the death of their ally, and now they're going to die as a result. Having picked up our fourth kill at this point, we snap around in a flat turn to go head to head with a Yakovlev Yak 9U, and we're going to use a bit of seesaw motion here to throw off the aim of the Yak 9U. We do not want to go head to head, so we will not open fire, and we're still reloading, so we're taking away our ability to fire back. Suicidal, some may say, but as we break over the top here, by cutting into essentially a loop and then turning it into a spiral climb, using our rudder to do so, we notice the Yak 9U, having gone into gentle climb since spawning in, and now having to level out because they do not have the energy to compete with us, has to essentially level out into a turn, and breaks up once again, but we take out their tail control, and we decide just to hover over the top, and think, well, we really want that ace in the day, let's finish them off. So we roll over at this point, snap down the rudder in combination with the elevator here to make life a little bit easier for ourselves, and also bleed out some speed, as the P-51D-30 has a tendency to hold a lot of its speed, especially above 4,000 metres altitude, although below 2,000 metres altitude it's quite the opposite. This plane bleeds speed like the plague, and we pick up our ace in a day. Now we know a P-63C5 King Cobra heading after one of our friendly bombers, the A-26 from earlier, and we also have a Fokker 190 going after it. We should note as well that as you have 1,880 machine gun rounds available, reloads come quite quickly, as you can expend a lot of ammunition in a short period of time. So taking a reload in a quiet period is always recommended, as sometimes when you go for those double kill or triple kill moments in boom and zoom passes or stalling opponents out or protecting friendly bombers, as we'll see shortly, having as much ammunition available as possible is going to work out. We go head to head here with the P-63C5 King Cobra. It is more of a suicidal notion than anything else for us, because we had the wing mounted armament, as stated previously against the Yak 3P, and we took a light graze from their machine gun. But at the same time, we managed to do some damage and we dissuaded the P-63 from coming back up. They've gone into a dive. We could have pursued, but we would have matched them essentially for diving down, especially as they had the speed advantage. We cut apart an I-185 who tried to climb up, and now we follow suit on our Fokker 190A5 to pick up a double strike and our 7th and final kill of the game, making sure that our allied bomber, the A-26, does not get intercepted and can help our team win the match for us. As we cut over the top here, again, going into a diagonal Immelman at this point, we level out, go for a reload, and notice, as we cut around on a flat turn on the rudder, that the game is essentially coming to its end. There it goes. The mission is accomplished, and it's time for us to take a look at the post-game stats. With our 7 kills, we're able to pick up 46,303 silver lines and 3,950 research points. To defeat the P-51D-30 then in a given matchup, I can recommend one of 2 options. The first, if you're flying an aircraft with centerline mounted armament, especially 20mm cannon, is to engage the plane in a head-on. Aircraft such as the LA-5FN and the Messerschmitt 19F4 will rejoice in this regard, being able to open fire successfully on the D-30 and snap rail out of the way before the D-30 pilot can get a clean shot with their wing-mounted armament. The alternative approach is to engage this aircraft in a turn fight and be relentless in pursuing it before it can get to 4,000 metres altitude, as below 4,000 metres altitude this plane will struggle for performance compared to the vast majority of its battle rating contemporaries. But if this plane is allowed to get to altitude and you do decide to turn fight with it nonetheless, be wary of your limited engine capacity, especially in planes such as the Sea Hurricane Mark 1C with increasing altitude. And on top of this, be aware of the fact even if you are winning in the midst of the turn fight up at higher altitudes, the D-30 pilot can use one last manoeuvre, and that is to go into a defensive downward spiral. And as they do and the speeds increase, they will be able to maintain their controllability, whilst your plane will typically not be able to, and this can cause you to overshoot, giving the D-30 pilot the ability to come onto your 6 and cut you apart, alternatively just break off and re-engage you at another time of their convenience. To conclude, the P-51D-30 takes over from when the D-5 left off, with its improved engine performance making it a very difficult aircraft to catch for its foes. This plane wants to follow in the path of its predecessor by once again being an air superiority fighter, securing the higher altitude spaces of the sky and being able to dominate over its foes with an energy advantage, making it an ideal aircraft to support friendly bombers as they try to level bomb the bases in ground strike matches. In fact, the performance differential between this aircraft and the vast majority of its battle rating contemporaries is so severe in terms of this plane wanting higher altitude performance whilst its contemporaries prefer low to medium altitude performance, that you may find when flying this aircraft that it is quite a lonely existence. And so I've been TX141, and if you've enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future War Thunder arcade fighter reviews on my channel. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and good luck in the skies.